Hi, and welcome to LCAL, Low Carb Ancestral Living with Pim Johnson. Today, we are going to talk about mental health and how culture impacts our mental well-being and how shame guilt is literally destroying us from the inside and how we can maybe bring some humor into this. So welcome to the show, Lois.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for tagging humor onto shame guilt because that's a new approach. We have to see it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very important that we're not taking even these serious emotions too seriously because it can just destroy us. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you help people find optimal mental health by dealing with this that you call shame guilt. So not with shame and guilt. So can you just explain to us what this means to you, why you have come up with this new concept or this phrase, shame guilt, as one thing rather than two different things?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you. So shame guilt, it's not because we did something wrong. Shame and guilt have defined themselves by culture, and we feel that shame is bad and guilt is good, and it confuses us. So it's not your fault you're dealing with shame guilt. You've been taught by culture to be very confused about these two very crazy conditions. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, shame affects the unconscious mind. And we can all relate to that because can't really remember about that shame. We don't even want to remember it, but we repress it because how can we go on feeling so shameful? We can't. So it's more unconscious related. And guilt, oh man, we got guilt right in front of us all the time. We don't have to go looking for it. So culture, psychology, whatever you want to call it, separates the two because they affect different parts of our body. Now, I will digress. The medical world is this way. If we have a virus in our brain, they call it meningitis. If we have that same virus in our kidneys, they call it nephritis. If you have the same virus in your liver, they call it hepatitis. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? Now, The reason they do that is for isolation, but also for billing. It's easier to bill for different conditions, but it's not the reason they are that way. They all come from the same source. So nobody has shame guilt-itis. And all of us have shame guilt-itis. But there's no way anybody can bill for that, correct? Because they think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, they're both the same, but they give them different names because of therapy and billing and all. But in order to heal it or get rid of it or to understand it, you have to know they're one and the same because our mind goes, okay, shame's here, guilt's here. And you will never, ever, 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 I guarantee you, never get rid of it because you're split between shame here and guilt here. And I'm saying it's the same thing. It's like shame guilt-itis. If I could, maybe I'll coin that word because it makes sense. Everyone has an infection of shame guilt-itis. Now, what that does is it coalesces all these extraneous things in your life into one thing. When you have one thing, Pam, right, you can focus on it.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about this and you're talking about this, and you just give up.
Yeah.
So first thing to do is to understand that shame guilt is an energy in itself. Culture calls it shame or guilt or whatever they want to call it. But that doesn't help you to heal. I'm all about, let's heal this thing. Let's get rid of this thing. But if you're all scattered about different words, about your emotions and things, you don't know your enemy. The only enemy you have is shame, guilt, energy. That's it. So what do you want to do? You want to learn about your enemy so you can defeat your enemy. That's a whole different concept than what's out there today. And that's one of the reasons why, since Adam and Eve, we've been struggling with shame and guilt. I mean, seriously, it's ridiculous now.
I agree.
Seriously, it's ridiculous. Oh, I feel so shame. I feel so guilty. I mean, seriously, we really need to rise above it. Okay.
So now, is there ever like a need to feel shame, guilt? Like if you've done something bad that hurts someone, should we just feel neutral about this, or is there actually some sort of healing in feeling that?
I love your question. Okay, now if you did something like you tripped your enemy, and then you feel guilty about it, but like they deserved it, whatever. Now, instead of feeling shame, guilt about it, because that goes down to a hole and it ends in suicide. Okay, so that's where shame, guilt goes. That's the road. I would say, okay, I did that. I kind of regret it. So I think I'll make amends. I don't know if I can make amends with that person, but I'll be nice to my other friend, whatever you come up with. Yeah. But when you say, I have regret, I have remorse, then you think of things to do that make it good again. But if you stay stuck in shame, guilt, you're stuck. It's over. It's you can't put on the refrigerator. I feel regret. I feel remorse. What other words you can think of? I can't think of any more than that right now. But it leads you into solutions. You want solutions. You don't want a hole of suicide. Awesome. So if you get anything from this podcast today, don't feel shame, guilt. Yes, you will feel it. And you say, no, I'm going to feel regret. Now, I had a client who felt very shameful and very guilt because she did not spend time with her mother who died from alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And that is true. She didn't spend much time with her, but I don't know if she could have done anything, because her mother was a confirmed alcoholic, but she didn't spend time with her either. So that's neither here nor there. She's feeling tremendous guilt for her mother's passing. So I suggested to her, instead of feeling guilty and killing herself over it and making herself miserable, feel regret that she didn't have the opportunity to help her mother. So today, she has now helped other people who are alcoholics find a way to release that and work towards organization, or she's like the person who helps people find organizations to help them with alcoholism, or people that have conquered it, or whatever scenario. But she's like a coordinator that people call into her, and she helps them find programs. So she changed the guilt to regret, to find solutions that she can now help other people. And she feels okay.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
It's beautiful. But that's like with everything.
Yeah.
Like I didn't treat my kid right. I should have done this. Well, feel regret, and then sit down with your child and say, Mommy goofed. I wish I would have done this. So help me and help you to talk about it before we get upset. You're doing positive actions. Okay, are you still going to feel some guilt? Of course, but the regret and remorse and the solutions are going to take over the shame, guilt. They will. Maybe not in 2 hours, but maybe 2 weeks or 2 months. But at least you're going in a path that's healthy.
Yeah, for sure. So has it always been like this in our society and the culture that we're currently in, or
Yes.
was it differently, like say 500 or even 5,000 years ago?
It's always been this way. It's always, only we're a little bit more communicative now, so we share our feelings. I came to these ideas about 15 years ago. And when I learned that shame guilt is the cause of all my negative feelings, I didn't have to go to therapy for anxiety and therapy for anger and therapy for depression and therapy. I mean, I was like, I'll be dead before I'm finished with therapy because I had all of the negative feelings. I just had to get rid of shame guilt energy.
Yeah.
Now, what that makes sense. And then I healed. And then everybody came to me and said, what are you doing? You know, how did you get over all these problems? And I just told them, and they started doing what I was doing. And then they healed, even though they had years of therapy. They were able to take this process and heal themselves. It's a self-help thing. And then their mothers and fathers and kids and friends came to me to do the same thing. And then I realized, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. Because nobody's a shame guilt educator that I'm aware of.
Oh, you're the first one I've heard about.
Well, there isn't. I can't find that on the internet. I said, you're not going to find. I'm the only one. I'm bringing you forward.
Yeah.
And somebody has to do it. So that's what I'm doing. And it's a digression from what's out there, but what is out there is not helping. People that are in therapy a long time only get worse because they keep on going over the shame guilt. They're not given options. They're going to say, don't feel that. Well, you just can't do that. I mean, I can't just think and then it's all okay, because it's not true. We cannot skip over the negativity that's taken over our place. So once we get out of the shame guilt hold upon us, we go into regret or remorse or solutions, then we can find the shame guilt energy that happened to us when we were 4 years old, 6 years old, or 8 years old. And that's what I do. I help people to find that place in that timeline of their life, release it, because it's actual physical energy they can release, and then they feel better and better and better. And it's easier and easier to deal with any shame guilt energy that we're all exposed to.
Yeah. So I don't mean to pick on religion, but I just want to bring it up.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah,
religion is a very big shame guilt pusher.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, I never really understood religion. My parents were very religious.
And I'm not. I love God so much. I mean, I'm not saying that things are wrong. I'm just saying that every organization uses shame guilt either consciously or unconsciously. The biggest people that use it are the marketing people that say, oh my goodness, you're going to be looked at from your whole neighborhood because you don't have a new car.
Yeah.
I mean, they use shame and guilt so ostentatiously that you just have to laugh.
Yeah.
So you can't change the world at this point. You can change the world by changing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what it's really all about anyway. So you just have to understand shame guilt is an energy. Now, why do I call it an energy? I think that's important to mention.
Mm-hmm.
We all know about the love energy. And what does love energy do for us?
It makes us feel good. It gives us,
feel great. We feel self-confident. We feel loving. We support each other. We have compassion. We have intuition. That's true. You can voice whatever you want. and nobody hollers at you.
Yeah.
So it's positive. It gives us momentum. We love each other. We communicate better. It's so many feelings that are attached to love.
Yeah.
If we look at it that way, love is not static. Love gives us joy and happiness and well-being and confidence. And yes, I can do that. And I am worthy. I am good. No matter how much noise I make, I am good, etc. On the other side, we have shame, guilt, energy. Now, this is a new concept that's not out there, but it's the truth. Shame, guilt is an energy like a computer virus that comes into our computer of ourselves. What happens to a computer virus? What happens to your computer, rather, when a computer virus comes into it?
Yeah, it goes tits up.
It goes
In some way.
bonko. Yeah, and you're like ready to throw it out. Well, we can't throw ourselves out.
For sure.
Fine, yeah. And what do you get? You get a virus removal program.
Mm.
And we need a shame, guilt removal program. That's what I'm about.
I put Lois in my head.
Pardon?
I put Lois in my head and everything will be fine.
Because we need to actually fix it. We need to take it out. Yeah. And that's what you do with a computer virus. They do whatever they do, the tech thing, and they erase it or whatever they do. That's what we have to do. You can't just say, oh, shame, guilt, go away. Yeah, right. That don't work that way. If it was that easy, Adam and Eve would be happy and very happy these days. So,
yeah, so
go ahead.
Okay, no, I just wanted to circle back to religion. And the reason I want to bring that up is because so many people think that just because I'm religious, I have to do this and that. And if I am not doing it this way, then I am supposed to feel guilt and shame. And if I don't, then I'm supposed to feel guilt and shame about not feeling that in the first place.
Exactly.
So how can we free religion from the shame guilt? How can we get to there? Because it affects so many people on
a different
way.
And it affects sensitive people who tend to be religious and want to talk to God. Okay. Now, no matter what someone says to you, you should feel guilty or whatever the words are. You say, I don't accept that.
Does that not go against the religion, though?
It depends who's talking. I'm 78, so I've heard a lot of priests talk, and I was, the born Catholic thing and all that. Yeah. So some priests don't really do the shame guilt thing anymore because they lost parishioners. When they talk more positive and loving, more people come to church. Mm-hmm. So it depends. And you get some of these priests that, oh, you've sinned, you horrible teacher. God will never let you into his kingdom. And well, you don't listen to people like that because God didn't say that. God is so loving. The demons bring shame, guilt. God brings love. Okay, so who do you want to listen to, the demons or God? It's really that simple.
Yeah.
So I prefer to talk to God and go to a priest or hear a sermon that's more uplifting. There's a lot of churches now that they just sing and they laugh and they, I love some of the churches that do that. They're singing and they're clapping and they're dancing and they're loving. Yeah. Is that not what God is? And the ones that say, you sinner, you must repent. Okay, we have done things that are not appropriate or that God would not do. So we have regret and we change it.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. We need penance. I had to do penance, sort of. I mean, it's like I didn't do everything perfect. And I'm like, okay, but I can change that with another person. And instead of going down the suicide lane of guilt, because I had, 3 miscarriages and lost 3 babies. So, I mean, there's a lot of guilt with that. And it took me years to get pregnant. So that's another story. So the guilt there is like huge. So you have to not go the guilt way, but I'm not saying to escape it altogether. Go the remorse, go the regret. Okay, that happened. What can I do about it? That didn't happen because I'm a bad person. Bad things don't happen to bad people. Karma comes in, and that's a whole nother story. But we need to be positive, not positive like forget it, positive in the aspect of regretting it, not feeling guilty, or change it, or help somebody else in the same position. Or I'm sure you people are very smart and you can think of other ways too. I'm just saying, don't go the shame guilt way.
Yeah.
And don't go the way of the positive. Nothing's wrong. Everything's beautiful. 100%. No, it isn't. So you can't go either way. You got to go in the middle. That's what I'm telling you. And there are priests that do that. Not all of them, at least in my experience. And I'm not saying religion is bad. I'm saying who's preaching.
Yeah. And it's, if everyone wants to go to those preachers that actually are positive, then there are going to be more of them.
Exactly. So I'm telling you, just because the priest is overburdened with guilt in his own life and he's preaching that, that doesn't mean that you have to go that way. No. You just run away and go the other way if you want. And if you want to do the guilt thing, well, you don't have to.
Yes.
I'm going to relay one experience. I was about, I'm maybe 7 or 8 years old. I don't remember much of my childhood, but I do remember this. I was standing in line to go to confession. We went to Catholic school, and that was like the 4th one waiting. And then I start crying. And the sister comes over to me and says, "Why are you crying?" I said, "I can't find my sins." And God said, if you all say that, if you don't confess your sins, you'll go to hell and God won't love you. But I can't find my sins. Okay, I'm a 7-year-old child who has a quiet family. And we come home from school. This is many, many years ago. And we do our homework and go to sleep. And, we were 100% Polish ethnic. So it was more very close knit. I mean, seriously, what sins am I committing? So I had to try to think up sins, like I thought of the wrong thing, or I thought that I didn't want to eat. I was going to die because I didn't eat. I mean, my mind was just going so creative, and I was crying because I couldn't find a sin. And if I can't confess my sins, I'm going to hell because God died for my sins. God died because of me and my sins. And I said, I can't find my sins, so I'm going to die and God won't love me. Now that's pathetic, but that's
what did she say to you?
Nothing. She wasn't very accommodating.
Oh.
She just said, just tell the priest your sins. I'm going, I can't find my sins. I can't find my sins. She wasn't very, So I don't remember much about that one, but I remember crying so hardly and praying to God for me to find my sins.
Oh, no wonder.
And I couldn't find them. I mean, like I didn't beat up my brother or my sister. And even if I did, that's really not a sin because maybe they deserved it. I don't know. I don't remember. But a 7-year-old, a 7-year-old that goes to communion every day is not sinning a lot.
No.
And I had a near-death experience when I was a young child. So I always talk to God anyway. So anyway. So they just told me just can tell the priest my sins. I'm going, I can't find my sins. I can't remember what happened after that. Okay, so that's the example that our culture has taught us. So we have a right to feel guilty. but it's not in our best behavior, not in our best design. And as a result, we become victims. We're not good enough. We never ask questions. We don't fight for our own freedoms. We don't think we're worthy of self-expression. You understand all that. You're a therapist. So I want to get people out of the hole.
Speaking of which, so I assume that close to 100% of people are feeling some shame guilt over some things that has happened in their lives. So if you want to kind of start releasing this and changing it, how would, because I also imagine that most people wouldn't necessarily consciously think about it. So how do you access that? Where do we start?
We start what I'm doing today. I'm bringing shame guilt out of the darkness of our mind. Because I remember I go, shame, what a wild name. I never knew what shame was. And then I realized that depression, anxiety, all the negative feelings are shame-based. Shame turns our positive emotions to negative ones. Like our compassion turns to depression. Our intuition turns to anxiety. Our passion turns to anger. So we already are happy and passionate and loving and intuitive. When shame guilt virus comes into us, it goes negative. How do we get positive? We get rid of the shame guilt energy and our emotions automatically turn back. We don't have to struggle. There's 10 steps to happiness.
Yeah.
We already have happiness. We have shame guilt that's stopping it.
Okay.
That's the new concept. But it gives hope.
Yeah, for sure. But I think a lot of people probably don't really know what's going on. It's like, I'm chronically depressed and I don't know why. Shame
guilt is an eraser.
Yeah.
Okay. It erases our mind. So we live in, if you feel confused, that's a feeling of shame guilt. Shame guilt makes you confused. So when you say, I'm confused, you say, oh, that's shame guilt energy. Get away. How do I really feel? I just feel depressed. Okay, now we can work on the depression. You can't do anything with shame guilt. They call it shame healing. You can't heal poison. It just is bad and you got to get rid of it. I don't take arsenic and try to heal it.
Yeah.
Okay. Shame guilt is, garbage. It just get away. It's an energy that's.
How do I identify this feeling? If I just feel depressed, like how do I go from feeling depressed to identifying that there is shame guilt and then addressing that, getting rid of that?
A lot of people say, I just feel so bad. I feel so guilty. I did that. Okay, shame guilt. I don't want to go down the guilt path. I don't want to do that. That don't belong to me. Okay. So how do I feel? I just feel really depressed. Okay, we can deal with high depression. Thank you for coming to see me. What do you have to tell me? Talk to your depression. Don't send it away, because depression is your compassion.
Excellent.
I feel sad. Hi, sadness. Thank you for talking to me. What do you have to say? All negative feelings are good. Shame guilt is an outside entity, energy that messes us up. A computer virus. We're a human computer. We have all the ley lines and everything in us, and it's a virus that comes into our body and changes our mind from clarity to confusion, changes our healing abilities from positive to negative. We get negative input in our organs don't work as well. Our stomach doesn't work as well. Our colon doesn't work as well. Shame guilt energy affects every part of us. And shame, it's like a cell phone. You're talking to God. God has a cell phone and you have a cell phone. And shame guilt energy is the disruptor that you can't talk or feel God. It's really a crappy, terrible energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there a way for us to walk around in society and sort of shame guilt proof ourselves so that we're not getting affected by it? Because it's going to bombard us from all directions.
Of course it does. And that's what you have to know. Know thy enemy.
Yeah.
Okay, are you going to catch it every time? Heck no, you're not that sophisticated yet. Either am I, and I've been working with it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you get 1 out of 4, consider yourself lucky. Okay, now someone says something to you that's very shameful, and then you go, oh, I don't want that. And then you would say to that person, that's an interesting comment. And then you change the subject. Sometimes I'm like talking on the phone and someone's doing the whatever, and I go, throwing it back to them. Or just say, I got to go, kids crying, soup spoiling, bye. Cut the conversation off.
Yeah.
You have to be responsible for yourself. You can't be responsible for what other people are doing.
Oh, I love that.
You don't accept it. And you can say, I used to say, can you say that another way? And they go, oh, never thought about it.
Yeah. So basically, we need to take responsibility for our own mental health, and at the same time, obviously, be kind to others and not do things that they might not be able to protect themselves from.
Well, I would say polite.
Polite. Okay, let's be polite.
Because some people don't deserve kindness. I mean, in a way, do you know what I mean? They manipulate it.
Yeah.
They manipulate your kindness. And I didn't find that out till recently. So be polite and just don't excessive explaining or excessive defending of yourself encourages someone to shame you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't get to the meeting on time. The light didn't work and I had a flat tire. The kids got up late. Thank you for waiting for the meeting would be better than giving 4,000 excuses.
Yes. Absolutely.
You cut the shame guilt.
Yeah.
It takes time, but at least you can be aware of it. That's what, hopefully people can get from this, is that the awareness that shame guilt is an energy don't belong to us. Now, we just have to say no over there. And that's another process that I can help people with. I teach them how to do this, but just know it doesn't belong to you. And if you start going down there and you can't get out, call one of your friends and say, I'm stuck in the hole of guilt, help me out. And then that person would say to you, well, think of regret or remorse or what you can do. Oh, okay. See how it changes?
Yeah.
Everybody deals with it. So it isn't like, oh, I don't think she'll understand. Oh, yes, she will. Or he will. Because we all do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's one thing that's, it's the pandemic, okay? Now that's a pandemic.
Exactly.
Shame guilt's a pandemic. I ain't going to get into all.
Yeah,
I'm not getting into all the other stuff, but shame guilt is the real pandemic here.
Yeah, for sure. So what type of people are coming to you? What do they come to you? What's most common, like when they seek your help?
Most of it is, I can't get out of this guilt. I've been to therapy for depression for 5 years, and I don't want to manage my depression. I want to get rid of it.
Yeah. And
I'm tired of 5 years of therapy telling me how to manage it. And I said to them, you're not supposed to manage it. You're supposed to change it. And you can kick shame guilt out, but people are not linking depression to shame guilt. So therefore, they're to say, manage it, just don't get depressed. Yeah, right. Like that's supposed to help you. It's not going to help. Yeah. And then some other people say, I feel so guilty. I feel so guilty. And I'm really not worthy because I took this $500 course and this other $1,000 course, and it's supposed to help build up my self-esteem, and I feel even worse, so I must be hopeless.
Yeah.
And I said, did you ever attend to shame guilt? They go, no. I said, well, you can take million courses, and unless you identify the shame guilt that's holding you down, you'll never get out of the hole, low self-esteem. So that's what people have to understand, that it's not their fault. Our culture is 10 ways to be happy, 5 ways to, build your self-esteem, which is good, but it makes you feel more depressed because you do it and it don't work.
Yeah. That's crazy. But yeah.
Well, it's true though.
Yeah.
It's true. And that's the kind of people I get. And I go, you're right. It's not going to help. Oh, I feel so relieved. I said, it's not going to. They say, I must really be stupid because I did all this work and I still feel, in fact, I feel worse because nothing worked. And I said, you're right. It's not going to work.
Yeah. And you would think that there is a clue if you had 5 years of therapy and it's still not working. Maybe.
Well, it depends on how much money you got,
I suppose.
Anyway, let's not go there. Because I did go to therapy when I was suicidal and it did help.
Yes.
I was able to get it. So there are ways, but long term, without effects, there's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I believe therapy is really helpful for some people for a period of time, but it's not something they should be doing for the rest of your life for the same thing anyway. If there are lots of things popping up, fine, but that's kind of different.
But, I think the best way is to learn how to do self-healing. And then if you have an emergency, you can call somebody and help. This is for self-healing. And
so I know that you mentioned that you're obviously not a therapist. You want to be seen as a teacher. So you're teaching your clients how to do this for themselves. So how long does it typically take for an average person to learn how to do this for themselves?
Well, it depends. Some people just want to feel better, for their job. Some people want to heal their lives. So that's 2 different categories. Of course, if the person just wants, like we're talking, give me some tips how to deal with life. I can spend 1 or 2 sessions with them and teach them what I'm teaching you now.
Yeah.
And that will get them out of the dugout on first base. Then they'll come back and say, this works so well. What else can I do? So I'll teach them more about releasing the shame guilt they've carried from they were 2 years old to 6 years old, 4 years old. And then they achieve more. So I've had people being in therapy for years and years, and I spend 1 session with them and they're better because I'm doing the same thing that I'm doing with you. Now, are they everything perfect? No, but at least it puts them on a different track.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. People don't know they need this information. So that's why I'm more of an educator. And people are very, very smart. We're very smart. We just didn't have the course. And that's what I teach people to teach themselves.
Yeah.
And I became a filmmaker because what I'm talking about is invisible. So I make shame guilt visible so they can see it actually exists. And my 2nd episode is coming out next week. So I'm very excited. Yay.
So if someone wants to work with you, where can they find you?
Lois, Lois, Hollis, HOLLIS.com.
And do you work online as well, like this, over Zoom?
Pardon?
Do you work over Zoom? Like, could I work with you from New Zealand? Yeah.
At this point, everybody's working on Zoom. Why would you be? Everybody's on Zoom.
Checking.
That's the way. Yeah, just checking. No, it's very, I can do it over the phone, but it's a lot better because you can see my reaction and your reaction. So that's really good how to do it. And I teach you how to write to yourself and things of that sort. So it's like going to school, so to speak.
Yeah.
I teach you what to do, and then you don't do it. And then you find your own way. But I just put you on a different road than where therapy usually puts you.
Yeah. Awesome.
And if you watch my film, imgoodfilm.com, it's free, it's 15 minutes. You'll kind of understand what I'm talking because it becomes visual.
Mm.
You know, shame guilt is hid in the closet. So we don't have any concept. So that's why I made the film, to make it visible. Because when you see something, you believe it.
Yeah. Perfect.
So if you want to do anything, go to imgoodfilm.com. And that's it.
Thank you. Sweet. We'll get that in the show notes as well. So do you have any other words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience before we're finishing up?
We are wonderful, beautiful, smart people. God made us beautiful and smart. And shame guilt came in and put the black curtain of no good on top of us. That's all. So it's us to take the curtain off. Shame, guilt is not for us to own or to give.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I hope that the listeners have got a few takeaways from there. I certainly did. And there's a lot to think about, and go and watch that movie. Thank you.
Thank you.